This is the Spokane Soccer Show, and I am your penalty shootout loving host, Benji Wade.
Boom.
I never thought in my life I would say those words. On today's show, Velocity FC are moving forward in the USL League One playoffs to the final of the tournament. Joining me to serve up only the best vibes about all things soccer in the fine city of Spokane, it's my friend Scott Linklater of South Hill FC. Welcome back to the show, Scott.
Thanks, Benji, for having me. Super exciting time to be on and talk about things. Oh my gosh, we're going to the finals.
I still feel relatively stammery and speechless over what transpired.
I got to say, it was probably one of the best bar environments for watching a sporting game ever. I was in Scotland when the Old Firm was played, which is the Rangers versus Celtics. And I was at a bar there.
Unfair comparison.
Yeah, except for that felt tense and crazy. This was fun and vibey.
Totally. That felt like lives were at stake, and they probably were.
Yeah, but this was like the best environment ever at Flat Stick. I'm not joking. It was pretty incredible.
You know what's really, really remarkable to me is 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting here talking to Ryan Harnato. Right. And fantastic conversation the whole time.
Go listen to it if you haven't listened to it. It's fantastic.
It is so good. It was such a great and meaningful. And we really went deep on all the different facets and nuances of running a club and the USL and so on and so forth. But as I'm sitting there having that conversation, I wasn't thinking, to be honest with you, anything other than a puncher's chance, which of course you have that. To now revisit that moment and know what has happened, it's completely bananas.
Yeah, crazy that they're going to the finals, their first shot at it, especially in an environment where we were probably really happy to make the playoffs, right? Just pretty pumped about great season, fun season.
Yeah, it was far from certain given that we went on a 7-game winless run. Yeah. But
I will say the last home game of the season when they played here,
one Knox.
Yeah, there was something different. And I remember we talked about it whoa, there's a shift that occurred. There's a gelling or something has occurred either in the vibe of the team or maybe just physically there. I don't know, but there was a shift and thinking hopefully at that point we would make it to here. I didn't know we'd make it this far. I'd like to say I knew, but I didn't know. Right.
I know. And I tell myself going into the tournament that anybody can win any game of this sport because that's just the way that it works, and anybody can upset anybody, but to not only defeat Northern Colorado 3-0 in that such dominant, convincing fashion, then to have Coach Wiedemann on the podcast, like a surprise out of nowhere podcast, by the way, it was really, really wonderful. And even while chatting with Coach Wiedemann, I'm thinking to myself, the circumstances for Northern Colorado were a little bit rocky. That club, you can Google it. They're going through a lot of turmoil. So you could kind of think maybe Northern Colorado just were going to struggle in that game. And so that's why we came in and just completely outplayed them because we did. We dominated that game from pretty much the 20th minute on. But then to go into Madison, you're like, that's the third best team overall. They beat us twice. But the thing about the conversation that I had with Lee that I thought was really interesting is I meant what I said. This does feel, though, like an opportunity to reset that relationship. So the first game we ever played against Madison, Brooks Thompson was this brand new goalkeeper who came out of nowhere on loan from Hartford Athletic, right? I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We'll cover some more information about Brooks in a moment, but I want to start the podcast with some shout outs. Okay. Right. It's a Spokane Soccer Show thing. We got to stick to the format. Spokane Soccer Show shout outs. Here we go. Shout out Spokane Velocity. Can you believe it? back to back clean sheets.
Boom.
Against the number 2 and number 3 overall teams in the league, Northern Colorado and Madison. And before that, number 5 in the league, one Knox. So we have not conceded a goal from the run of play since October 19th when we were away the last time at Northern Colorado.
Which is a pretty wild stat because when do you want to get hot? You want to get hot the game before right going into the playoffs. And it feels like we just we spiked and we really are hitting the upswing right in the right time, which is super pumpy for us and so much better movement on and off the ball.
Did you listen to the conversation with Lee?
Oh yeah. Great conversation. If you haven't listened to the Lee conversation along with the Ryan conversation, both fantastic conversations. If you're a fan of Velocity and Spokane soccer, it's a must.
What I really appreciated was that his description of the movement had been there up until the 18-yard box, but it was those final 8 to 10 yards that didn't really fully click until the Northern Colorado game. And what a time to like decide to like score goals. It was like unbelievable.
Watching Anwar Pelaez make runs to posts and creating space in behind and the whole thing, you could just see it come alive where you have one running to the post. You have one then at the top of the box. You have these goals that are the result of a lot of movement. And I just was super pumped about that.
And there was something about in particular, the goal scored by Anwar in the game against Northern Colorado that showed what Lee was talking about. And it showed all the movement through the lines. It started with a ball from Marcelo Lage heavy to the feet of Jack Denton. Denton takes a great first touch. He then finds Camardi Smith. Camardi Smith doesn't take like half a beat before he realizes he has Javi Martin Hill on the overlap, gives him the ball. Javi's streaking down the touch lane, swings in across, and Anwar makes a perfect run to split the center backs. And it's, again, that final movement, though, I think is what we've kind of been missing. There's been a lot of play in and around the edge of the box, but not in the box. Yeah. So, yeah, it was really, really cool. So can you imagine if we run the table against the best 3 teams in League One? Because we've beat number 2 and number 3, and now we're playing against number 1, Omaha, in the final.
And we've beat Omaha
twice,
commanding, and twice here, right?
Yeah,
not there, but we beat them, and so there's a possibility. They have to be thinking, "Hey, we're the underdog. Spokane's the underdogs." And even at when we were at Flat Stick talking about, "Hey, they were playing with house money." I mean, there should be no worry in the world with these guys from Spokane playing against Madison at that point. But then now Omaha, they should be feeling really confident. This is an exciting thing. The pressure's on Omaha.
The pressure is totally on Omaha because you could say that the 2 times that we played in their stadium, which is a pile of garbage, and I'm excited for Omaha that they're building a new stadium, and then I think that'll be ready next year or the year after. But they did beat us handily in those 2 games. However, there's something obviously that looks a lot different about this setup and the way that we're playing right now, which is very much unique in terms of the times that we've played them before. So any shout outs from you before I move on?
Yeah, 2 shout outs for me at the Flat Stick at the end of the game. Jonathan and Andres jumped up on the table and were swinging the flags. You probably saw some of the really cool pictures of them swinging flags. And so shout outs to those guys to be prepared for victory.
Yeah. And they kind of said all this under my nose because I was standing right next to them. And I saw them kind of non-verbally communicating with each other. Maybe a couple times, like Jonathan went up and whispered something to Andres. And but it totally caught me by surprise. So I have the video on Instagram that great. I'm really stoked that I got. It was really, really special to have that moment in a 1:15 video.
So I'd like to point out the big part that I played in that, which is at the end of the table, there was a guy with a pizza at the end, and I just leaned over and said, "Hey, there's going to be a guy that jumps right here in about 30 seconds. So can we move your pizza?"
Wait, did you know?
Well, I saw them talking, and I was like, they're jumping up on these tables because they were like clearing spots. And I was like, I want to move this pizza over so Andres doesn't jump up in the middle of the pizza. So that's my part, is clearing the pizza out of the way. But that's a little behind the scenes right before that. But yeah, they were ready to go.
But this is different because it's like, this is the thing I was talking to Lee about. And what I really liked about the conversation with Lee, and you don't really pick it up, even though I got video of that conversation, but I'm looking across at Lee and he was very much emotional when I described the atmosphere for the Northern Colorado game. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, Coach, I hope you listen to this episode. Last Saturday, the game against Madison, that environment rivaled the one against Northern Colorado by, I don't know, like it felt like there were at least 25% more people there.
Yeah, there was, I mean, I'm guessing a couple hundred people. It was as full as it could get. I mean, you couldn't fit any more people in that lane that ran right down the middle.
You couldn't fit anybody anywhere, it didn't feel like, other than the perimeter of the space.
We had our little thing that has the number on it because we ordered some pizza, and it was on the garbage can because that was our table. Legitimately, that's where we put out, because that's the only spot that we could stand. And it was amazing. I wouldn't change a thing about it, man. It was really, really cool.
From the game itself, I have to start with a couple players. I know you have some that you want to shout out to. Shout out Derek and Javi. They were both spectacular. They generated a lot of attack. They had 4 and 3 chances created respectively. And defensively, they held their space the whole game and contained a lot of the threat that you would expect to be generated by Madison. I just, once again, Derek Weldeck, Javier Martin-Hill, you were awesome again in this game. You've been awesome in like dating back to the 3 clean sheets. They've featured heavily in all 3.
For me, players to shout out, Andre Lewis, just always a fave for me. And I gotta say, been hard on Josh Doling, but when he came in, he played well. Yeah. And how they're playing with Pelaez and Doling in this sort of where Doling drops back as a false 9. He dropped, he'd be forward, but he drops back a little ways. All of a sudden, I'm being reintroduced to Doling as a new person. Like, he's a different player when he plays in that role versus trying to be this run forward player, which he's not really. And I feel like I understand and appreciate him more. So props to Doling. And with the first penalty, was he the first penalty taker?
He was. Yeah. And we're going to get to that. He plays as a withdrawn. You're calling it a false 9. It's pretty accurate. Like I mentioned to Lee at the season ticket holder event, I said, hey, are we going to see this 2-striker set again, the 4-4-2 or whatever? And he was like, actually, it really wasn't a 4-4-2. And Josh wasn't even playing striker. And he was like, I had him lined up as a midfielder. He was basically kind of like playing an advanced 10.
He was. Yeah.
And it makes sense.
It does make sense.
And he got subbed on. He came on for Luis Hill.
He in this game, that it was kind of shocking. When Luis Hill came off, I think there was a little bit like, what the heck, coach?
It got people's attention for sure.
We were standing there and we were watching it going, wait, what's going on? Is he injured? Is there something wrong? Because usually Luis Hill in this type of game, you'd want to leave him in there. But props to Lee for making that decision, and obviously the right one. They end up winning. Yep. And props to Josh Doling. So I just want to shout out to Josh Doling.
Love it. Shout out the woodwork. Okay. We're going to shift over to the Zephyr FC game, which was also playing at Flat Stick on multiple screens. And it was like you got 2 0-0 games and their game finished 0-0, but Zephyr FC struck the woodwork at least by my count 3 times. And every time just groans went up in Flat Stick. It was crazy. Shout out Gonzaga's Chelsea Lee, Marissa Garcia, Lauren Town, Paige Alexander. In their final game as seniors for Gonzaga, they defeated Loyola Marymount 2-0. Goals for Chelsea and for Caitlin Rigg. Both of those goals assisted by friend of the podcast, Marissa Garcia. A clean sheet for Lauren Town in her final game. Chelsea's goal was just another absolute golazo with her left foot. And if you've followed this podcast since the beginning, you've heard me talk about Chelsea many, many times. She is a right-footed player.
Which is wild.
And she has 2 goals that were scored this year. And I'm going to put together a little something about those goals at some point.
They're bangers.
Absolute bangers from way out. So her left-footed goal was very similar to the one that she scored against San Diego. That's also on the timeline. You can go find that. Gonzaga finished their season, Scott, 10-7-2 and finished 3rd in the WCC. Nobody would have predicted that going into the season with the 7 transfers that they lost. So shout out Coach Katie Benz. I think that is a really, really good result for that team for this year. Shout out to veterans. Today's Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day to all the men and women who've served our country. Do you have any other shout outs, Scott?
No, just excited for this upcoming game, man. I am excited for the upcoming game. So shout out to the vibe that's going to be happening down.
Shout out the final. And I don't know where it's going to be. I mean, I think the official watch party has not yet been announced, but I'd like to go back to Flat Stick. That's where I intend to go because I want to keep a good thing going. I'm superstitious. Yeah. I haven't even changed my clothes, Scott. I'm wearing the exact same thing I wore to Flat Stick. Yeah, I haven't taken it off. I slept in this.
It smells like the beer that you were drinking.
It does. Yeah.
I had one question.
Puffy IPA. Shout out Yaya Brewing.
Which was good. I think I had one of those. One of the questions I had is, so that place was so full, and I probably heard 20, not short of 20 other people go, I'm going to come down to this next game. And so it's going to have to be 2 spots. And so you're going to have 2 watch parties, right? Because it's going to overflow that place, right?
It probably would.
I would think.
That's a good point. I never even thought about that.
Are you going to split it between sponsors?
Interesting.
Well, these are the kind of questions you're going to have to think about, Benji. This is big information.
Hashtag Flat Stick Pub for life. I mean, that's just, those are my guys. So that's where I'll be.
That's where I'm going to go.
Okay. Yeah. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about that historic win over Forward Madison from Velocity FC. The Spokane Soccer Show is supported by Spokane City Credit Union. Are you a customer at a big dumb bank? Well, stop it. At a bank, you're just a customer. At a credit union, you're a member and a shareholder. You can help make decisions about what the credit union does do or doesn't do. Banks just want to get bigger by swallowing up smaller banks one at a time until there's only 1 or 2 banks left. Nobody wants that. Well, except for big banks. Since 1934, Spokane City Credit Union has remained independent, relevant, and local, with a focus on the financial needs of individuals and families in Spokane City. Go to sccu.net, Spokane City Credit Union, serving Spokane one member at a time. Okay, we're back. I just want to start by talking about some of the pre-match vibes, okay? So we mentioned how crowded it was, and we were just chatting during the break about where is the watch party going to be that's going to accommodate the amount of people? Because, you know, sports have a funny way of doing this. There's a lot of people in Spokane who've probably been like, I heard that there's professional soccer and I haven't been to a game yet. And somebody even commented on Twitter because I uploaded the video of the reaction to our win. Mm-hmm. And somebody was like, I'm in Spokane. What is this? And I was thinking to myself, I'll bet you we will get, and this is a great thing, by the way. I'm not shitting on anybody, but there will be some kind of bandwagoners who are like, I got to get in on this. So Velocity, of course, I'd never miss a game. There's going to be those people who just like have not probably seen a game in a few months, or maybe they've never been to a watch party when we're on the road. They've only gone to the stadium. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is going to be madness.
It'll be madness. It'll be one of the. It's gonna be one of the more exciting of sporting events that I've been to.
Yeah, and
I've been to some good ones. You know what I mean? But this will be amazing. This is a fun, and you know the people, you know the players, and
that's the difference, Scott. Yeah. This is what I'm trying to tell people. Like when I did have enough people come up to me that it made me feel sane. That it's like this was people saying that this was their most important or favorite or whatever, like most memorable sporting event that they've watched or whatever. And it's because you know them.
Yeah.
You've gotten to like high five or hug or whatever, or like some people have like had a beer with some of these players like that. You know these players now. This is what we were talking about before the season ever started, of you will walk into a grocery store and you will run into the players that are playing for this team.
Yeah.
For these teams.
And that's a unique thing for a lot of the folks that are, I think, for one, getting introduced to soccer as a game is one thing. Getting introduced to soccer as a cultural event. Yes, is a whole different thing. And I think we are, this is nothing short of a big thank you to the club, because, you know, when my imagination, I listened to the Ryan interview and the Lee interview. When you start a club like this, right, there's a lot of moving parts. You don't know when the season's going to end, and you don't know, you're doing your best, but you don't know if it's going to take.
Yeah.
Right. You don't know if it's going to take off like this. And yet it's taken. And so now that it's taken, you had a bunch of people there, and it's not just a bunch of dudes at a bar. Like, these are young, old, everybody, you know, from all across, like tons of parts of Spokane coming together, and it has a vibe to it that is different than other sporting events. It just does. And I'm not downing the other sporting events. Like if you go to the Apple Cup and you watch, or a GU game, those are exciting in their own right. But this is a different type of a flavor. And I would just encourage you, if you have not been to an event like this, come down and watch this game, and you're going to get hooked on the culture of soccer, not just the game of soccer. And props to the ownership group that has done the work, and the front office that has done the work to bring an experience like this to Spokane, because it's incredible. It's an incredible one.
I think that the point you're making is it's well made. And the fact that the team is brand new has a lot to do with it, because everybody feels like they have a piece of it. They have some equity in it as fans, instead of, oh, I didn't go to Gonzaga, or, you know, you get the rivalries of, oh, I'm a Whitworth or WSU or whatever. The college thing is not the same. Mm-hmm. This is a brand new professional team of which everybody has been made to feel a part of it.
Yeah.
And I cannot think of a better tonic following this godforsaken national election that just occurred than something like this. You described it as a cultural event, and I have no takes that are going to be about politics on this podcast. It's something I try to avoid just because I'm not interested in that. That's not the purpose of this podcast. In fact, I would say the purpose of this podcast is often the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. It's to find unifying civic activities like watching soccer together. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really, I can't tell you how much it meant to first talk to Lee the day after the election, and then to go to that game on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a bright spot And back to the people who haven't attended one of these, you ever skip a rock on a flat lake? And if it skips a few times, you're like, that's a pretty good skip, and your friend's like, oh, good one, but then there's that one that just keeps going and going. And you're like, it gets to the end. You're like, wow, that's amazing. If you haven't been to one of these, you're going to get to see the very end of that line where you're going, this is amazing. And come and join. Like it's arms wide open, all welcome, right? Come and join and experience it. You don't have to have attended all the games or even gone to any games at all. Come and enjoy what you're going to see, which is a spectacle. And I hope we win it. And, I'm predicting we are, but we'll talk about that.
And what a gift, the ripple, that rock that keeps skipping.
Yeah.
First with the draw against One Knox to end our regular season at One Spokane Stadium. Then a 3-0 win on the road against the Jägermeister Cup winning second place overall Northern Colorado. Then to defeat Forward Madison at Madison.
Yeah.
Like, it's a gift. And, I think back to the point that I'm not making, but making about politics and about sports and about how important this is, I think, for our community. Too many people, and I'm included in this, have parasocial relationships to things happening at a national level. If you don't know what the word parasocial means, it's really important in our day and age. It basically means think about famous people that are speaking to things that are happening on a national level, whether politicians or they're any kind of flavor of demagogue or commentator out there, right? You don't actually know them. They're not your friend. Just because you listen to them have 2 or 3 hour conversations on a daily basis, they're not your friend. They aren't. So don't form too many opinions or ideas based on what's being said by somebody really famous making hundreds of millions of dollars. That's my advice for people.
Yeah.
Go down to your local pub or the stadium and crack a beer or break bread with somebody who lives in your community and participate in that activity together. And I think you're going to have a lot less likelihood to form enmity toward them, regardless of their political perspectives.
Yep. And I would defy you to come to this experience next week and not have a great time. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have a fantastic time, and it's going to be a unifying feeling, and you're not going to be thinking about any of that stuff.
Yeah. And there'll be people in your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I have to make fun of you for a minute.
Bring it. I love it.
Dude. Okay. Folks, I'm going to look right at the camera.
This is like look at the camera moment.
Scott Linklater, South Hill FC, must have wandered up to me at Flat Stick on Saturday at least 12 times. And the vibe was, I'm 30 minutes into an edible. Because he said,
which I was not, but not to say that I couldn't, but I wasn't.
Sure. Yeah. It's legal in the state of Washington. And he was looking around the joint and just kept saying to me, can you believe this, man?
It's true. It's true, man.
And by the way, he was right, but I just have to point it out because I was like, it is awesome. But
you're like, shut up, man. Watch the game. Shut up, man. Watch the game.
We just gave away another corner kick. Like, what are you doing?
So what I was thinking, I was looking around this place and
it's like double rainbow. It was like that. It was look at that, man.
I think it was the moment where it was me and you and Jonathan and Andres just standing there and we're looking around and you're going, wow. It was almost like that thing where you're like, it worked. You know what I mean? Like,
it is true.
It worked. This is amazing. And I kept feeling that. And you're right. It wasn't edible, but it was,
Fluffy Puffy IPA.
Yeah, it was and
or double pivot pub ale.
Yeah, and for the love of God, I had tried one of those. And it was, and some pizza too. 2 slices, $5.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's it. I was excited.
You were excited, but
I was
honestly, you're exactly right to do that.
Yeah.
I'm teasing you, but it is important to take stock sometimes in life and just make yourself pause in a moment.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it because I often fail to do that. Let's talk about the game.
Okay.
Jeez Louise. If you didn't hear it on the podcast, the last Zephyr game played at One Stadium against Tampa Bay Sun, which was won 1-0 by Zephyr from a breathtaking goal by Marley Canales. Goal of the month, goal of the year, like just astonishing goal. I ran into my friend Ryan Shelley of Side by Side Spokane. Shout out Ryan. At halftime when it was a pretty, even match at that point, but we weren't quite sure it was going to happen. I said, what do you think the outcome's going to be? And he said, we're going to win 1-0. Marley Canales is going to score the goal. That happened. Okay. Fast forward. Pre-match on Saturday, talking with Andres and Jonathan. And Jonathan says, do you have a prediction? I'm like, I don't really do predictions, by the way. And I said, well, what do you think? He said, I think it's going to go 0-0 and we're going to win on penalties.
Nailed it.
Unbelievable.
Nailed it.
Okay. So that happened. You want to talk about the game?
The game itself was pretty cagey, pretty tight.
Yep.
But overall, I was pleased with the play. I was pleased with the pass, largely pleased with the passing.
I think both teams played really competent soccer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can't say that like we dominated the game and deserved to win. And I couldn't say that about Madison. I think both teams had their chances. I think we generated some of the bigger chances. I think going by the metric of big chances we created more of those. The first time we played against Madison, Brooks was just signed on loan from Hartford Athletic. We lost 3-0. We had the better XG. We had 1.65 XG in that game. Madison had 0.7, yet we lost 3-0 because they scored 3 bangers. Okay. Our second game was in September against them. It was weather delayed. Luis Heel got hurt in the first couple minutes. Ahmed was suspended. But now we have Anwar. The team is fully fit of the players that don't have like season ending injuries. Right. By the way, Madison had the best home record in the league, only lost once at Breese Stevens Field. We didn't give up that many great chances to them. That's one thing I was really proud of. Yeah, Spokane had 3 big chances created. Madison had 0. Even match otherwise, 30 shots total, 3 on target though, which is not a very high number. So
they cranked some into the crowd.
They did. Yeah. One in particular, like a riser from Devin Boyce, the guy who scored a worldie against us back in May. That one scared me. Madison had 56% possession. Marcelo and Cameron led the game with defensive actions. And I got to say, whatever's going on in that partnership right now, may it continue because they are solid together.
Yeah, they really look like they're in control. They don't feel like they're chasing at times. Our defense in the past, maybe we're chasing things. We're trying to rotate too quickly and we miss an assignment or things like this.
Yep.
This one didn't feel like they were chasing as much.
Look, the last time you and I recorded a podcast together, one of my least popular podcasts yet. You want to know why? It's because we were talking about the losing streak. People don't like tuning in when
people don't like listen to that stuff.
They're like, oh God, we have to talk about that. And we broke down some of what was going wrong. And we talked a little bit about the defensive partnerships at the back.
Yeah. It was kind of a therapy session for us as much as
it was specifically the Greenville game where we gave up 3 very soft goals. Yeah. Since that time, we played very well against Northern Colorado. We conceded 1 goal on a mistake from Ish. Okay. Otherwise, we were really good defensively in that game. And then 3 clean sheets in a row. All right. Let's take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the penalty shootout. And I have a lot of information about penalties. So let's get to it. This episode of the Spokane Soccer Show is brought to you by Feast World Kitchen. If you know, you know. If you don't know, I'm about to tell you. Think authentic, mouth-watering cuisine from all over the world delivered to your mouth right here in downtown Spokane. Here's the part you might not have known. Feast is a nonprofit that effectively creates chef entrepreneurs by offering a bunch of programs where immigrants and former refugees learn career skills, earn income from their food sales, and build connections in the community. Quick sidebar, I still have daydreams about the beef sambusas and the spicy jollof rice that we had during the AFCON watch party in January. But don't take my word for it. Head down to Feast World Kitchen on 3rd Avenue, follow them on Instagram, or go to their website at feastworldkitchen.org. All right, Scott, we're back. We got to talk about the penalty shootout.
Yeah.
Let's start with this, okay? I did some research.
Okay.
Here's what I found out, courtesy of our friends at 538. Shout out. The team that shoots first, the team who shoots first is favored to win a penalty shootout. Maybe it's a little over 50% of the time, okay? But it's close. However, this is not disputed. The team who scores first wins 60% of the time. So we go into this penalty shootout. Madison shoots first, of course. Before we get to the details of the shootout, I want to give you a little backstory, okay? Brooks Thompson, on loan from Hartford Athletic. Here's the backstory that people probably don't know about Brooks. Brooks played for North Carolina FC last year. Okay. North Carolina FC won the USL League One championship last year. They then moved up into the USL championship. So he started, I think, around 15 games for North Carolina FC last year, including in the playoffs and including the playoff final that they won. And it went to penalties against Charlotte Independence. They defeated Charlotte Independence 5-4 on penalties. And you can go ahead and guess who made the most important save of that led to them winning.
Joel Johnson, it's saved! Brooks Thompson off the bar! Confident in the run-up as his eyes are on Thompson the whole way. It's a comfortable height for the goalkeeper, and Thompson does just enough to punch it off his crossbar. Big time save.
Madison, by the way, lost their penalty shootout 5-4 against Northern Colorado in the Jaeger Cup final. So, Madison's hurting right now. And another
Madison backwards.
Oh, wow. It was also 1 year ago tomorrow, November 12th, 2023, when Phoenix Rising defeated Charleston Battery 3-2 on penalties in the USL Championship final. Now, why does that matter?
Why does that matter, Benji?
Lee Wiedemann was the assistant coach for Charleston Battery.
Wow, look at that.
So I just have to imagine right now, Lee is extremely stoked about where life has taken him in the last 12 months. Keep in mind, Battery were up 2-0 in that penalty shootout, and then went on to lose 3-2.
That is
They
painful.
missed 3 in a row. Let's go round by round.
Okay.
Here's what happens. Madison shoots first. Devin Boyce is up first. Devin Boyce is the one who scored that worldie against us that beat Brooks. And I think a lot of people watched that game and thought, who's this new goalkeeper, Brooks Thompson? I don't think anybody's saying that now, by the way. So then up steps Josh. You already talked about Josh in the shoutouts, but I'm going to double down on that because for these reasons. They scored their first one. That puts a lot of pressure on the team that shoots next, right? Especially the away team in front of all those hooting and hollering weird, like the flamingo sounds or whatever the hell.
Curds and the whatnot happening, you know.
And not only that, Josh has taken 3 penalties. The first one was against Greenville. The second one was against Greenville. We talked about that. He went to his left each time, did the same thing against Madison, goes lower left, perfectly placed penalty.
Yeah. Cool as a cucumber.
Totally. And he just looked like nonchalant about it. And I admittedly admired that moment so much. Okay. Up steps Garrett McLaughlin, who scores Madison's second penalty. Okay. Backstory on Garrett McLaughlin. There's a story there. Was a teammate of Brooks on that North Carolina FC team. Okay. Was rumored to be in the running to be signed by Velocity. Ended up signing for Madison and not signing for Velocity. So when he struck his penalty and he scored his, he turned and like the commentator even said something about it. He had this little smirk on his face. And I got to be honest, I think he's going to be one of the number one enemies on Velocity FC fans lists after this. Because even in Flat Stick, well, I guarantee you no one knew this backstory about McLaughlin nearly signing for Velocity. A lot of people were like, that guy sucks. I hate his face. Okay. So
I love that.
Up comes Anwar.
Very exciting.
Scores the second one for Spokane.
Bang.
And it's then that you realize Burn Shipman is a big boy.
Yeah.
And he probably was overthinking things a little bit. He was sliding around on his line. And I was like, that's an interesting technique as a goalkeeper. I've never really seen a goalkeeper do that, especially in a shootout.
Well, you get the goalkeeper for Argentina, Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
He does a lot of that antic stuff, sliding around, waving his arms. He does it, he's crazy. And then Steve Clark for Houston does it a little bit in the MLS, does that a little bit. But you have most of them just stand still, right? Heels on the ground behind the line. But yeah, there was some movement.
In the case of Emi Martinez, though, it is pure shithousing.
Yes.
Whereas Burn Shipman felt like he was just, I don't know. It looked uncomfortable.
Nervous energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't look comfortable is all I'm going to say. Onward did not care. It was cold-blooded, his penalty. Third penalty for Madison, and it's this player named Sharif J. And I feel bad for this player. So this is tough because he had only been in the game for 2 minutes. He was subbed on in minute 118 for Ferretti Sousa from Madison. So
he must be a penalty shootout specialist. So why else would you, or the person that he's subbing off for has an injury or something like this. So he's subbing in because he's good at it, or the person coming off is injured.
It's a great question. Any of my Madison friends that are listening to this podcast, Rob Chappelle or others, let me know, because it was really surprising, and I feel bad for him. But I'll tell you, that was a very well struck penalty, though.
Yeah,
you can't look. His penalty, Sharif J's penalty, was well struck, headed for I think a foot inside the bottom right corner. But Brooks just made an absolutely career defining save, diving to the same direction, by the way, that he did against Charlotte Independence in last year's championship.
Yeah, it was a fantastic save. I mean, unbelievable. Really, really, really great save.
Super athletic, balled right inside the right post, but he just gets a really strong hand to it because boom. Yeah. That's one of those where it could have gone off his glove and into the goal. But he not only dove and made a really athletic save, but was really strong in doing so. Okay, this is where it gets like really, really interesting. And at Flatstick, we're all kind of starting to lose our minds, I think.
So when he makes that save is when Jonathan and Andre start getting the flags on. Okay, let's get the flags.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because then it's like if we go 5 for 5, right?
Yeah.
Azriel Gonzalez steps up. I think with the second most pressure of the shootout.
Yeah.
You could probably rank them. Josh's and Azriel's is like 1A as far as the pressure, and not to get to the one that decided it in a moment. But Azriel Gonzalez, I think he just saw his keeper make a world-class save. And you're thinking, I can't miss this.
Yeah.
Like that would be awful. And he takes the most aesthetically beautiful but risky penalty you'll see. Strikes the top of the crossbar and pings over the goal. Shipman's flying around on his line again, but it made zero difference. Emphatic, cold-hearted. He just turns and walks away calmly. And I was like, Azriel Gonzalez, man.
He was probably going, oh, thank God that went the right direction after he hit the bar, right?
Because anything can happen when you hit the woodwork.
Yeah. Props, Gonzalez.
Jimmy Villalobos for Madison scores the third. Up steps Andre Lewis. And a chant of Andre Lewis breaks out in Flatstick, okay? Andre is, by the way, low-key Spokane's favorite player, in my view. Perfect penalty kick. Takes just a little stutter in his run-up that gets Shipman to guess, and that little hesitation. I can't believe soccer players do this. Whether it's Jorginho or any player that's ever had a little stutter in their run-up, I don't understand how they do it. Because then what they're counting on is seeing a lean from the keeper, maybe even a dive from the keeper, and they go the other direction. But think about how bing, 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 how split second that has to happen. You have to have so much confidence in your reflexes and your reaction to not see the keeper go a direction. But then, you know what I mean? Like he's counting on Shipman doing what he does. He goes like this, and Shipman knew immediately.
He got it.
Like
he got taken.
Me. Yeah, he got taken. Yeah. It's the celebration, though, that got me with that one. It's Ballard all over again. Andre walks to the top of the 6-yard box and just does the point, the Night King thing, like right here.
The Ballard game when he hit the banger.
When he hit the banger, he went right to the crowd, went to the right to the opposing fans. It's like he went. So Azriel basically was the opposite. Azriel takes this cold-blooded pen, smashes the top of the bar and goes over, and he just like turns and walks away, does a little silent prayer. Andre is just like, give it to me.
Facing the fans.
Taking it.
Like a boss.
And just like in the Ballard game, in case you stuck around to watch the moments after the game, almost got in a fight because it was.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. There were some Madison fans that were very upset about that. Of course.
Well,
Christian Chaney scores the fourth for Madison. This is what I don't like about this. He brushes up against Brooks Thompson. Did you catch this?
No.
Oh yeah. He walked past Brooks on his way to his goalkeeper, Bern Shipman, but in doing so, does like a brush/bump to Brooks Thompson. And then he pats Colin Fernandez on the shoulder. Yeah. So
shithousery.
Christian Chaney, Garrett McLaughlin, both on the shit list for Spokane fans. I didn't like it, but I also didn't hate it. Because it's like,
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it because guess what?
Gamesmanship. Yeah, because guess what?
5-4.
Here comes Colin Fernandez, sends Shipman the wrong way again, buries it, and Flatstick becomes absolute pandemonium. Yeah. And this is when I had my note that you've already gotten to about the shout out for both Jonathan and Andres. They immediately jump on the table, and the loudest, I helped, this felt really fun. I helped lead the loudest chant imaginable. And this is when I lost my voice of VCFC.
Yeah, it was exciting. What a fun time.
Hugging people I've never met before.
Yeah.
Nicole Mullaby, shout out Nicole, openly weeping.
Happy tears. Andres openly weeping.
Andres was weeping. You're right.
Yeah.
Andres is one of the many people that I like hugged twice. Like I forgot that I'd already hugged them. Tate Kelly from USL Spokane almost injured me. He was so hyped.
Yeah. That was a really cool moment. And it's interesting because I'm sure now all the players have seen the video of the atmosphere. But if you're a player and you realize that that's what's happening back at the Flatstick pub, right? And which will be happening next week.
Yep.
How energizing is that?
It's so cool. Do you see how many people went to the airport? So they just showed a video the club did of a bunch of people went to the airport to greet the players coming home.
It's fantastic.
It was awesome. I know Nicole was there. She was chatting about it on Discord.
South Hill Herd.
South Hill Herd. Shout out. Yep. Any other notes and thoughts about just that vibe, that moment afterward?
I don't know if there's any other thoughts other than just, you're going to think I'm an edible again. Just the sense of appreciation and the sense of appreciation for what we've got to experience here in Spokane around soccer. I mean, it's really incredible. And so just props, man. It's good times.
I know there's going to be time.
Spokane.
There's going to be time to reflect on everything that has transpired since the beginning of the year, starting with the announcement of the first players and all that kind of stuff. But we're not quite ready for that because guess what?
Yeah, we got one more game.
We are going to Omaha to play in the championship on Saturday. It's going to be at noon Spokane Pacific time. And pay attention to the Instagram page for what's going to happen with like where the watch party, maybe plural parties, are going to take place. I'm actually a little bit surprised that there hasn't been an announcement from either the 509 Syndicate or from the club, but I actually kind of suspect there will be multiple venues because I don't think there's going to be enough. There's not enough room at Flat Stick. There's still people we have so much more room to grow as a soccer loving community. Yeah. And I will still say though, this is now officially a soccer town. Noon on the Golazo Network. If you can't make it down to the watch parties, plural, whatever happens there, it's on the Golazo Network, which is CBS. So you'll need that. Paramount Plus, whatever it's called. Union Omaha have not lost since September 11th, by the way. We've beat them twice in Spokane. They beat us twice in Omaha. So
tiebreaker.
And it's Luis Gil's former club, as we all know. And there is no love lost there. I think he, has no, he has nothing harsh to say about his time in Omaha or anything like that. But you want to beat your former team.
You want to beat your former team. So predictions, you got any predictions of this upcoming game? I have a prediction. I can start with mine. Okay. So my prediction is going to be 2-1. It's going to be a penalty by Luis Gil. So Luis Gil is going to draw a penalty, and then Andre Lewis is going to hit a banger probably in like the 70th or 80th. And then it's going to be really tense till the end of the game. Someplace around I don't know, before halftime, right after halftime, Omaha is going to score a goal, and it's going to be game 2-1 Spokane for the championship.
You heard it here, folks. I don't do predictions, but I'm just going to say that I know we are going to compete our asses off, and that's what I'm really excited to see.
2-1 Spokane.
In other news, real quickly, Zephyr FC will be playing at Lexington this Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pay attention to 509 Syndicate for where that watch party will be, because of course they are on the road for the remainder of the first half of their season, and back-to-back games without a goal. I mean, Ekich left the game against Carolina with an injury. Hope she's okay, because we obviously very much need her. We need her goals. And yeah, after this conclusion of the USL League One season, which there can officially be no more games after this weekend, I will get back to paying close attention to Zephyr FC, and we'll have Jamie on to talk about those games. And much more to come soon. Thanks once again to my friend Scott Linklater for joining me on the Spokane Soccer Show.
Always.
Be sure to rate, review, follow Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast. iTunes is not even really a thing anymore, but I think it's called Apple Podcasts now. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace. Up the falls.
Up the falls.